I was in the kitchen making breakfast when Nathan shuffled in, wearing that expression of sleepiness mixed with irritation that I'd grown so familiar with after 7 years of marriage. He didn't even look at me properly, just mumbled something about being late and grabbed the cup I'd left ready on the counter. There was no good morning, no goodbye kiss like in our early years, not even a glance of acknowledgement. I was just part of his morning routine, like the programmed coffee maker or the ironed shirt hanging on the chair. In that moment, I didn't yet know it, but that would be the last coffee I'd make for Nathan without questioning absolutely everything about our relationship. The conversation happened the following night, after I came home from my second job completely exhausted. I worked as an administrative assistant at an accounting firm during the day and did freelance graphic design work at night to supplement our household income. Nathan was a sales manager at a car dealership, but over the past 2 years his commissions had plummeted, and he seemed less and less motivated to turn the situation around. While I took on more financial responsibilities, he seemed to settle into that comfort zone I was providing without realizing it. Coming home that night, I found the living room messy with empty beer cans and delivery food wrappers scattered across the couch. Nathan was playing video games with the volume up high, completely oblivious to the chaos around him. I took a deep breath, trying to control the frustration bubbling inside me, and started picking up the mess. That's when he paused the game and turned to me with that expression I would come to deeply hate. "Are you going to start complaining again, Claire? I work all day. I deserve to relax when I get home," he said in a tone that mixed disdain and weariness. I felt something break inside me, but still tried to stay calm. "Nathan, I also work all day. Actually, I work 2 jobs, while you spend your nights gaming. We need to talk about how to better divide responsibilities here at home." I responded, trying to sound firm but not aggressive. What he said next would completely change the course of my life. Nathan got up from the couch with a sudden movement that made me instinctively step back. He looked me up and down with a look I'd never seen before, full of contempt and arrogance. "Responsibilities? Claire, let's be honest here. What's really your contribution to this house besides paying the bills? You're not exactly anyone's dream wife. You don't cook right. You don't keep the house spotless. And frankly, you've really let yourself go lately. You're only good for paying bills anyway, so at least do that without complaining so much." The words came out of his mouth with a frightening naturalness, as if he'd thought about it for a long time and finally found the courage to verbalize it. I was completely paralyzed, holding an empty beer can in my hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. That night I didn't sleep at all. I lay beside Nathan, who was snoring peacefully, as if he hadn't just destroyed my self-esteem with a few cruel sentences. My mind wouldn't stop replaying his words in an infinite, torturous loop. "You're only good for paying bills." Was that how he saw me? After all these years building a life together, after all the effort I made to keep our family functioning financially, after all the times I gave up my own dreams to support his. Was that how he saw me? As a simple financial provider with no other value? Tears silently streamed down my face as I stared at the ceiling of our bedroom, a bedroom I decorated with such care, in a house I was paying for practically alone. When the sun rose, I'd already made a decision. If Nathan thought I was only good for paying bills, then that's exactly what I would do. Just that. Nothing more. I would withdraw all the other contributions I made that he clearly didn't value at all. I got out of bed with a renewed purpose, a strange mixture of pain and determination coursing through my veins. Nathan was still sleeping soundly when I started executing my plan. First, I grabbed my laptop and created a detailed spreadsheet of all household expenses, I calculated exactly how much was needed to keep the basic bills paid: rent, water, electricity, internet. Then I transferred only that amount to the joint account we used for household expenses. The rest of my salary, including all the money from the freelance work I did until the early morning hours, was transferred to a new bank account I opened in my name only. Nathan didn't even know this account existed, just as he probably didn't know half the things I did to keep our life running. As I set up the automatic transfer, I felt a strange sensation of freedom beginning to sprout inside me. That money was mine, the fruit of my labor, my sweat, my lost hours of sleep. If Nathan wanted to reduce my existence to a simple bill payer, then he would have exactly that, and nothing more. In the following days, I began implementing subtle but significant changes. I stopped doing grocery shopping that went beyond the basics. Before I would fill the cart with the imported beers Nathan liked, the expensive snacks he loved to eat while gaming, the ingredients to make elaborate weekend dinners. Now I only bought the essentials for my own meals: rice, beans, chicken, simple vegetables. If Nathan wanted anything beyond that, he'd have to buy it with his own money. I also stopped paying for the premium streaming service he used every day to watch series and movies. I canceled the subscription to the gaming magazine that arrived monthly in his name. I stopped renewing the luxury gym membership he sporadically attended. Nathan's initial reaction was pure confusion. "Claire, what happened to Netflix? I can't access my account," he asked me a few days later while I was preparing my own dinner. I didn't look up from the pot. "I cancelled it. It was too expensive and I wasn't watching anyway," I replied with a calmness that surprised me. "What do you mean you cancelled it? I use it every day. And how come you didn't tell me first?" Irritation was beginning to color his voice. I turned to him with a cold smile on my lips. "Nathan, you made it very clear that I'm only good for paying bills. I'm paying the house bills. Netflix isn't an essential bill. It's entertainment. If you want it, you can pay for it with your own money." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan stood there in the kitchen staring at me as if I'd spoken in another language. He clearly didn't expect me to actually take his cruel words seriously. "You're being ridiculous, Claire." I said that in the heat of the moment. You know how I get after a stressful day at work. He tried to justify himself with a tone that mixed irritation and something that could be confused with regret. But I was no longer willing to accept empty apologies. "Nathan, you expressed exactly how you feel. I'm useful only for paying bills. So that's what I'm doing. Paying bills. The essential house bills are up to date. Anything beyond that is no longer my responsibility." I went back to stirring my food in the pot, effectively ending the conversation. In the days that followed, Nathan began to notice the extent of the changes I was implementing. He opened the fridge looking for his favorite beers and found only water and simple juices. He looked in the cupboard for his preferred snacks and found only my basic granola bars. He tried to access the gym account and discovered I'd cancelled the membership. Each small discovery was accompanied by complaints and questions that I always answered the same way. "That's not an essential household bill, Nathan. If you want it, you need to pay for it with your own money." His frustration grew visibly with each day. What Nathan didn't know was that while he complained about the lack of his little comforts, I was secretly saving a substantial amount in my personal account. All the money I used to spend maintaining his comfortable lifestyle was now being saved for myself. In just 2 weeks, I'd already saved the equivalent of 3 months of my salary. The feeling was surreal. For the first time in years, I had money left over at the end of the month. For the first time, I could buy something for myself without feeling guilty or needing to justify the expense. I bought some books I'd wanted to read for ages. renewed my subscription to an online course platform I'd cancelled for economy, bought some new clothes that made me feel beautiful and confident. But the changes didn't stop at finances. I also stopped doing household chores that only benefited Nathan. I washed only my own clothes, leaving his to pile up in the basket until he was forced to wash them himself. I cooked only individual portions for myself, leaving him to discover on his own that ordering delivery food every day was absurdly expensive. I cleaned only the spaces I used, leaving the living room where he spent hours gaming to accumulate dirt. Initially, he didn't notice, accustomed as he was to everything magically being clean and organized. But after a week, the living room was unusable, and he had no more clean clothes to wear. That's when the second big argument happened. Nathan entered the bedroom where I was calmly reading one of my new books, with a pile of dirty clothes in his arms. "Claire, aren't you going to wash my clothes? I have nothing clean to wear tomorrow," he said with a tone of indignation that bordered on absurd. I slowly closed my book and looked at him with a neutral expression. "Nathan, I'm not your maid. You're a grown man perfectly capable of operating a washing machine. The instructions are in the manual I left on top of the machine." He looked at me as if I'd completely lost my mind. "This is ridiculous! You've always washed my clothes. What's happening to you?" I got up from the bed and walked until I was face to face with Nathan. "What's happening to me, Nathan, is that I finally understood my value. Or rather, I understood how you value me. You made it clear that I'm only good for paying bills. So the bills are paid. But I'm not your maid. I'm not your mother. I'm not your servant. If you want clean clothes, prepared food, an organized house, you have two options. Do it yourself, or pay someone to do it. But don't expect me to do it for free anymore, while you treat me as if I were invisible and worthless." The words came out firm and clear from my mouth, and for the first time in a long time, I felt powerful. Nathan threw the clothes on the floor angrily. "You're being childish and vindictive, Claire. Marriage is about companionship, about helping each other. You can't just stop doing your part." The hypocrisy of that sentence made me laugh, a bitter laugh that echoed through the room. My part? Nathan, I was doing my part, and your part. I worked 2 jobs, paid most of the bills, took care of the house, cooked, cleaned, washed, all while you complained that I wasn't the dream wife. You want companionship? Then start being a real companion. Start dividing the real responsibilities. Not just the financial responsibilities, but all the responsibilities. The argument ended with Nathan storming out of the room, slamming the door. I heard him grumbling down the hallway, and then the sound of the front door slamming. He'd probably gone to his mother's house, as he always did when he couldn't deal with conflicts. I went back to bed and resumed my reading, but my mind couldn't focus on the words in the book. I was processing everything that had happened in the last few weeks, analyzing my relationship with Nathan from a new perspective. When exactly had everything become so unbalanced? When had I accepted carrying all the emotional, financial, and domestic weight of this marriage without questioning? I began to remember the early years with Nathan. In the beginning, he was attentive, loving, participative. We naturally divided household chores, planned our future together, dreamed of the same goals. But at some point, gradually and almost imperceptibly, things began to change. When I got a promotion and started earning more, he began to relax at work. When I suggested we do something together, he was always tired or busy with his games. When I asked for help with household chores, he always had an excuse ready. And I, like a fool in love, started compensating for his shortcomings, filling the spaces he left empty, carrying the weight that should have been divided between us both. The next morning, Nathan didn't come home. I received a message from him saying he was at his mother's house and needed time to think. Part of me felt immense relief. The house seemed lighter, more breathable without his constant presence of judgment and disdain. I took advantage of the day off to do something I hadn't done in a long time. Take care of myself. I made an appointment at the beauty salon, got my nails done, cut my hair in a different way I'd always wanted to try. But Nathan always criticized. I bought a new outfit that made me feel beautiful and confident. I went to the movies to watch a film I wanted to see, but Nathan found boring. I dined alone at a nice restaurant, where I ordered exactly what I wanted without having to consider anyone else's tastes. While dining alone, I grabbed my phone and opened the banking app to check my personal account. The balance was growing impressively. In less than a month of implementing my new system, I'd already saved enough to cover 6 months of rent for a small apartment. The realization hit me like lightning. I didn't need Nathan financially. Actually, Nathan was the one who needed me. I was supporting not just the house, but also his comfortable lifestyle. Without my financial contribution, he could barely afford a decent apartment alone, let alone maintain all the comforts he'd become accustomed to. This realization completely changed my perspective on our relationship. For years, I'd felt lucky to have Nathan, as if he were doing me a favor by staying with me. He constantly made me feel inadequate, never pretty enough, never interesting enough, never enough of anything. But the truth was exactly the opposite. I was an independent, intelligent, hard-working, and resilient woman. I didn't need Nathan. I didn't need anyone who made me feel small and undervalued. I deserved someone who saw me for what I really was, an incredible partner who was willing to give everything for those she loved. Nathan came home 3 days later, and I immediately noticed that something had changed in his posture. He walked through the door with the expression of someone who'd been forced to swallow their pride. "Claire, we need to talk," he said with a voice less arrogant than usual. I was in the living room reading, and only briefly looked up before returning my attention to the book. "Go ahead," I replied without much emotion. He sat on the couch beside me, maintaining a respectful distance. "My mother made me realize some things. She said I was being an idiot, and that you have every right to be upset with me." I almost laughed at the irony of Nathan needing his own mother to point out the obvious to him. "Nathan, I'm not upset. I'm enlightened," I said, closing the book and finally giving him my full attention. "You showed me exactly how you see me and what my value is in your eyes. You're only good for paying bills. Those were your exact words. So I decided that if that's how you see me, that's exactly what you're going to get. A person who pays bills and nothing more." Nathan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I knew well. "I didn't mean it literally, Claire. I was frustrated, tired. I said things I didn't think." I leaned forward, looking directly into his eyes. "Nathan, words said in anger usually reveal truths we keep when we're calm. You may not have consciously thought about it, but clearly that's how you subconsciously see me." He tried to interrupt me, but I raised my hand, asking for silence. "Let me finish. In these past weeks, I've had a lot of time to think about our relationship, about how we got here, about how much I've been giving and how much I've been receiving in return. And you know what I realized? That I became invisible in this marriage. I work 2 jobs to maintain our house. I take care of all the household chores. I organize our life. I plan our future. And what do? You complain that the food isn't the way you like it, that the house isn't clean enough, that I'm not attractive enough, that I don't give you enough attention. You suck all the energy I have and still complain it's not enough." The words flowed from me with a clarity and firmness I didn't know I possessed. Nathan was getting visibly uncomfortable, shifting on the couch and avoiding my gaze. "I didn't know you felt this way," he mumbled weakly. "Of course you didn't know, Nathan. Because you never asked. You never genuinely interested yourself in how I was feeling, what I was going through, my dreams, my fears, my needs. Our relationship always revolved around you, your desires, your needs, your comfort, your entertainment, and I was fool enough to accept this role of supporting character in my own life." Nathan finally found the courage to look me in the eyes again. "What do you want from me, Claire? What do I need to do to fix this?" The question caught me by surprise because for the first time he seemed genuinely interested in the answer. I took a deep breath before responding. "Honestly, Nathan, I don't know if this can be fixed. You broke something fundamental in our relationship. You made me feel small, undervalued, as if I were replaceable, as if the only thing I bring to your life is money. And now that I've withdrawn everything else, now that you're having to deal with the consequences of your own words, you want to take it back. But it's not that simple." I got up from the couch and walked to the window, looking out at the street. "In these past weeks, Nathan, I rediscovered who I am without the weight of trying to be perfect for you. I realized I'm much more than a bill payer. I'm a talented professional. I'm an interesting person. I'm someone who deserves respect and admiration. And I won't accept less than that anymore. Not from you. Not from anyone." I felt Nathan approach from behind, but I didn't turn around. "Claire, I can change. I want to change. Give me a chance to prove I can be the husband you deserve." His words sounded sincere, but I'd heard empty promises from him before. "If you really want a chance, Nathan, then you need to prove it with actions, not words. You need to show that you value me for who I am, not just for what I can do for you. You need to start truly contributing to this relationship, financially, emotionally, domestically. You need to treat me as an equal partner, not as a maid who also pays bills." I turned to face him. "And even so, I can't promise you that I'll be able to forget what you said. Those words are marked here." I pointed to my chest, where my heart still ached with the memory of the humiliation I felt that day. Nathan nodded, seeming to finally understand the gravity of the situation. "I'll prove it to you, Claire. I'll show you I can be better." He walked away and went to the bedroom, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to give our marriage a chance, wanted everything to go back to being like it was in the beginning when we were happy. But the wiser part of me, the part that had grown and strengthened through the pain, knew that some wounds were too deep to heal completely. In the following days, Nathan really seemed to make an effort. He started washing his own clothes, learned to cook some basic meals, began cleaning the living room after gaming. He even sold some items he no longer used and contributed an extra amount to the house expenses. But there was something that still deeply bothered me. All these changes came with a clear expectation of recognition and praise. Nathan acted as if he were doing a huge favor by performing basic tasks of a functional adult, as if he deserved a medal for washing his own clothes or cooking his own food. One day he finished cleaning the kitchen and came to me with an expectant smile. "See? I left everything shining. I'm getting better, aren't I?" I looked at the kitchen that still had some splashes in the sink and crumbs on the floor. "It's good, Nathan," I replied without much enthusiasm. His expression immediately fell. "Just good? Claire, I spent an hour cleaning. You could at least acknowledge my effort." And there was the problem. Nathan wanted extraordinary credit for doing ordinary things, He wanted applause for contributing minimally to a home that should be both of our responsibility. I had done all these tasks, and much more for years, without ever receiving a single thank you. But he expected a celebration every time he loaded the washing machine. Nathan, I acknowledge your effort, but you need to understand that this isn't something exceptional. It's just the bare basics. It's the minimum expected of an adult living in a house. I explained, trying to maintain a patient tone. I do all this and much more for years without expecting praise because it's simply part of life. You can't expect me to treat you like a hero for finally starting to do your part. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Nathan was clearly struggling between wounded pride and trying to understand my point of view. It was around this time that I received an unexpected proposal at work. My boss, Margaret, called me into her office and offered a significant promotion. The position came with a substantial salary increase and the possibility of working more remotely, which meant I could finally quit my second freelance job. It was an incredible opportunity, the kind of thing I'd dreamed about for years. But there was a catch. The position required me to move to the company's office in another city, approximately 3 hours away. I would have to move or make the daily commute, which would be unsustainable long-term. I came home that night with the proposal weighing on my mind. It was a decision that would affect not only my career but also my relationship with Nathan. In the past, my first reaction would be to automatically refuse so as not to inconvenience Nathan, not to destabilize his life, not to create conflicts. But now, after everything that had happened, I found myself seriously considering the proposal. Why should I give up an incredible professional opportunity for a man who saw me only as a bill payer? Why should my career and my dreams always take a back seat? When I told Nathan about the proposal, his reaction was exactly what I expected and feared at the same time. You're not seriously considering accepting this, are you? Claire, I can't move now. My job is here, my family is here, my life is here. I took a deep breath before responding. Nathan, I didn't ask you to move. This is my opportunity, my decision. I'm just informing you because we're still married and this affects you in some way. He looked at me incredulously. What do you mean your decision? We're a couple. These things need to be decided together. The hypocrisy of his words was almost comical. Nathan, tell me something. I began, sitting on the couch and gesturing for him to do the same. How many times have you made important decisions about your career, your time, your money, without consulting me? How many times have you changed jobs, spent money on expensive things, made plans that affected our life, without including me in the decision process? He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out, because we both knew the answer. Countless times. He had always treated his life and decisions as individual, expecting me to simply adjust and compensate for any inconvenience his choices caused. So, yes, Nathan, this is my decision, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. But for the first time in my adult life, I'm going to make a decision thinking first about myself, my growth, my happiness, my career. And if you really care about me, if you really changed like you say you did, then you'll support whatever decision I make, even if it means changes for you too. Nathan sat there processing my words, and I could see the conflicting thoughts passing across his face. He was being forced to confront the fact that I was no longer the compliant woman who put his needs above my own. In the following days, I carefully weighed the pros and cons of the proposal. I made a detailed list, talked to friends, researched about the city, visited the new office. The more I investigated, the more attractive the opportunity became. It wasn't just the money, although the raise was substantial. It was the chance to grow professionally, to work on more challenging projects, to be recognized for my talent and dedication. It was the possibility of starting over in a place where no one saw me just as Nathan's wife or as a bill payer. During this decision-making process, I noticed something interesting about Nathan's behavior. The more time I spent considering the move, the more attentive and loving he became. Suddenly he wanted to do activities together, planned romantic dinners, gave me gifts for no apparent reason. It was as if he was finally realizing that he could really lose me, and that scared him deeply. But there was something false about all that sudden attention. It seemed performative, calculated to make me stay. It didn't seem genuine or based on a true recognition of my value as a person. One night, during one of those romantic dinners Nathan had prepared, he finally verbalized what he was thinking. "Claire, I know I messed everything up. I know I treated you badly, and that you have every right to be questioning our marriage. But please, don't accept this proposal. Don't leave me. I promise I'll really change this time. I'll be the husband you always deserved." His words were loaded with emotion, and for a moment, my heart softened. But then I remembered all the times he'd made similar promises in the past, promises that lasted a few weeks before we returned to the old patterns. "Nathan, answer me honestly," I said, putting my fork aside. "If I hadn't received this job proposal, if there wasn't the real possibility of me leaving your life, would you be making all this effort? Would you have changed anything? Or would you continue treating me like you always did?" The silence that followed was revealing. Nathan opened and closed his mouth several times trying to find the right answer, but we both knew the truth. He was only changing because he had something to lose now, not because he genuinely recognized my value or because he genuinely cared about my well-being and happiness. "I thought so," I continued, feeling tears begin to form in my eyes. "And that tells me everything I need to know about our relationship. You don't love me, Nathan. You love what I do for you. You love the convenience of having someone paying the bills, taking care of the house, making your life easier. But you don't love me for who I am as a person. And I deserve more than that. I deserve someone who values me every day, not just when they're afraid of losing me." I got up from the table, no longer able to contain the tears streaming down my face. Nathan also stood up, trying to hug me, but I gently pulled away. "No, Nathan. I need space to think. I need to make this decision with a clear head, without emotional pressure." I went to the bedroom, locked the door, and finally allowed all the repressed emotions to surface. I cried for the woman I had been, who settled for so little. I cried for the time lost in a relationship where I gave everything and received crumbs. I cried for the years I spent feeling invisible and undervalued. But I also cried with relief, because I was finally seeing the situation clearly. The next morning I made my decision. I called Margaret and accepted the promotion. My voice was firm, and decided when I said yes that I accepted the challenge, that I was ready for this new phase of my life. After hanging up the phone, I sat for a moment just absorbing the weight of the decision I'd just made. It wasn't just about the job. It was about choosing myself for the first time in a long time. It was about recognizing my own value and refusing to accept less than I deserved. When Nathan woke up and came down to the kitchen, I was already sitting at the table with fresh coffee prepared. He looked at me with expectation mixed with fear, as if he knew something important was about to be said. "Nathan, I accepted the promotion," I announced without beating around the bush. "I'm moving to the other city in 3 weeks." The color drained from his face. You're serious? You're really going to leave me?" I shook my head. "I'm not leaving you, Nathan. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my growth, my career, my happiness. You're more than welcome to come with me if you want, but I'm going, with or without you." The discussion that followed was intense and emotionally draining. Nathan alternated between anger, sadness, attempts at negotiation, and more promises of change. But I remained firm in my decision. I made it clear that my move was happening regardless of what he decided to do. If he wanted to save our marriage, he would have to make the choice to accompany me, to make sacrifices for our relationship the same way I had for years. It was time for him to show if he really cared, or if I was just convenient for him. In the following weeks, I began preparing for the move. I hired a moving company, started packing my things, looked for apartments in the new city. Nathan watched all this with a mixture of disbelief and growing despair. He seemed to finally understand that I was serious, that I was really willing to rebuild my life without him, if necessary. Sometimes he tried to have deep conversations about our future, but I maintained a healthy emotional distance. I'd cried enough, hurt enough. Now it was time to take care of myself. 1 week before the move, Nathan finally made a decision. He sat down with me in the living room and announced he'd quit his job. He'd talked to the company, and they'd offered him a similar position in an office near the city I was moving to. He'd researched apartments, made professional contacts in the new city, even talked to his family about the move. "I'm going with you, Claire," he said with a determination I hadn't seen in years. "Not because I'm afraid of losing you, but because I finally understood that you're worth fighting for. You're worth any sacrifice." I wanted to believe him. Part of me was relieved that our marriage might not be completely lost, but another part, the part that had learned to protect itself in recent weeks, remained cautious. "Nathan, I appreciate that, but you need to understand that moving to the city with me doesn't automatically fix our relationship. We still have a lot of work to do. You still need to show me, every day, that you value me for who I am, not just for what I do." He nodded, seeming to understand. "I know, and I'll prove it to you, Claire, every day, for the rest of our life if you'll let me." The moving day arrived faster than I expected. As the movers loaded boxes onto the truck, I stood looking at the house that had been our home for so many years. So many memories were contained within those walls, some happy, many painful. I felt Nathan approach and stand beside me. "Ready for a new beginning?" he asked softly. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, ready." But even saying that, I wasn't sure if this new beginning would be with Nathan or without him. Only time would tell. The move to the new city was simultaneously stressful and energizing. The new apartment was smaller than our previous house, but it was mine. I had chosen every detail, from the location to the decoration. Nathan and I decided to live in separate apartments initially. I wanted to have my own space, my own independence, while we worked on rebuilding our relationship. He wasn't happy with this decision, but accepted it, recognizing that I needed this. At the new job, I flourished in ways I didn't think possible. My boss recognized and valued my work. My colleagues respected me. I was working on challenging projects that really made a difference. For the first time in years, I felt professionally fulfilled. I came home at the end of the day tired but satisfied, not exhausted and undervalued. And without the second freelance job, I finally had time for hobbies, for friends, for myself. Nathan, on the other hand, was struggling more with the adaptation. The new job was more demanding than the previous one, and he was having to prove his value again. He was far from family and friends, and for the first time he was having to deal with all the responsibilities of adult life alone, since we lived separately. Washing clothes, cooking, cleaning, shopping, paying bills. All these tasks I used to do for both of us were now exclusively his responsibility in his own apartment. It was a difficult adjustment, and I could see it weighing on him. We met a few times a week for dinner or to watch a movie. Nathan was genuinely making an effort to be a better partner. He asked about my day and really listened to the answers. He planned thoughtful dates that involved things I liked, not just his own interests. He started going to individual therapy to work on his issues. But even with all this progress, something inside me had fundamentally changed. The wound he had caused with those cruel words, "You're only good for paying bills," had left a deep scar. 6 months after the move, Nathan invited me to a special dinner at an elegant restaurant. During the meal, he held my hand across the table and looked me in the eyes with an intensity that reminded me of the man I had fallen in love with years ago, Claire. These past months have been the hardest of my life, but also the most enlightening. I had to face who I'd become, how I treated you, how much I hurt you, and I've been working every day to be better, to deserve you. He paused, clearly nervous. I know we still have a long way to go, but I love you. I love you for who you are, not for what you do for me. Would you give me the honor of really starting over? Of trying again, this time the right way? I looked at Nathan, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, hearing the emotion in his voice. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to believe we had overcome our problems, that we could have the happy marriage I'd always dreamed of. But another part, the part that had grown and strengthened through the pain, made me pause. Nathan, I don't know. I replied honestly. You hurt me deeply. You made me feel worthless, invisible, replaceable. And even seeing all your effort now, even recognizing your genuine change, I don't know if I can completely forget. I don't know if I can fully trust you again. Tears began rolling down Nathan's face. I understand, and I accept that. I'll keep proving to you, for as long as it takes, that you're the most valuable thing in my life. Not because you pay bills or take care of the house or anything else practical, but because you're you. You're intelligent, strong, resilient, compassionate. You made me want to be a better person. And even if you decide you can't forgive me, even if you decide our marriage is over, I'll respect your decision. Because respecting you, respecting your needs and desires, is the least I can do after all these years of disrespecting you. We returned home from that dinner without a definitive answer. But something had changed in me. For the first time since that terrible night when Nathan said those cruel words, I felt a spark of hope. Not naive hope that everything would magically return to normal, but hope that maybe, just maybe, we could build something new and better on the ruins of what we had before. Hope that Nathan was finally understanding not just with his head, but with his heart how much he had hurt me and how much he needed to change. Today, a year after that dinner, Nathan and I are still working on our relationship. We moved back in together, but under completely different terms. We divide all responsibilities equally, financial, domestic, emotional. He continues in therapy, and we also started couples therapy. We still have difficult days, moments where old patterns try to resurface. But now when that happens, I have a voice to name the problem, and Nathan has the tools to recognize and correct his behavior. I will never completely forget those words. You're only good for paying bills. They will always be there, a painful reminder of how much I allowed my value to be diminished. But they also became a powerful reminder of my strength, because when Nathan said those words, when he tried to reduce me to just a utilitarian function, I could have bowed down, could have tried to prove my worth by doing even more, sacrificing even more of myself. But instead I did something radical. I believed him. I said, "You're right. I will only pay bills." And by doing that, I showed him and myself exactly how much he depended on me, how much I contributed, how much I was worth. If you're reading this story and identified with any part of it, if you see yourself in a relationship where you feel invisible, undervalued, where you give much more than you receive, I want you to know something important. You're worth more than that. You deserve to be seen, appreciated, valued for who you are, not just for what you do. You deserve a partner who recognizes your contributions, who divides responsibilities equally, who treats you with respect and admiration every day, not just when they're afraid of losing you. Sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is establishing firm boundaries. It's saying, "I deserve better than this, and I won't accept less." It's being willing to lose something or someone you love if it means gaining your own self-respect back. It's choosing your own happiness and growth, even when it's scary, even when it's difficult, even when you don't know for sure what the outcome will be. My story doesn't have a perfectly happy ending wrapped with a bow. Nathan and I are still struggling, still learning, still growing. Some days are harder than others, but the difference is that now I know my value. Now I don't accept less than I deserve. And if Nathan decides at some point that this work is too hard, that maintaining a healthy and balanced relationship requires too much effort, then I know I'll be okay. Because I don't need Nathan. I don't need anyone to complete me or validate me. I'm complete on my own. And that's the most important lesson I learned. You can't build a healthy relationship from a place of need or dependence. You can only build a true partnership when two complete and whole people choose to unite. Not because they need each other, but because they genuinely want to be together, because they make each other's lives better, because they respect and admire each other mutually. So I ask you, what's your value? Are you being seen and appreciated by your partner? Are your contributions being recognized? Are you receiving as much as you're giving? And if the answer to any of these questions is no, what are you going to do about it? Because you deserve more. You always deserved more. And it's never too late to start demanding the respect and love you deserve. Leave your comment down below, telling your own story. Have you ever felt undervalued in a relationship? How did you deal with it? And if this story touched you in some way, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more real stories about relationships, personal growth, and self-love. Your story matters, and your voice deserves to be heard. See you in the next video.